When you backed Jeb Bush, you thought he had a good chance to be the nominee. He's gone through a rough patch, although the debate buoyed him and his supporters a little bit.
I think it did.
What ails Jeb Bush now? What is the problem that's keeping him from being one of the clear front runners, and what's the solution to
Well, first of all, I supported Jeb Bush because I thought he would be the best president, best qualified person to put up against Hillary Clinton. I still think that's all true.
Right.
What's surprising about this race is that does not seem to matter.
Right.
And we've got two people leading the Republican race who have no experience in government and who don't match up well, in my judgment, against a highly experienced and credible candidate like Hillary Clinton. But the public...
So what ails him, and what's the solution for the nominee?
I think that the solution, let me say what it's not. It's not to start being something other than what he is. I liked him in the debate the other night, policy-oriented, defending his position on immigration, even though it may not be the most popular position in the party. I didn't particularly like last debate where he criticized Marco Rubio, which I don't think is in his character to be that kind of a candidate. You got to just move ahead, talk about policy, take Trump on who's the front runner, on some of the ridiculous things he says about policy. Maybe Carson, too, although Carson's a lot less definitive on policy. And hope that in the course of the campaign, that's what penetrates. I think people ultimately are going to want to choose a candidate who's qualified to be president and qualified to go up against Hillary Clinton.
Do you have a sense that, I mean, one of the things I think people have watched is he has performed not as well as many people thought he was going to perform, is the question of whether he really wants this or not. Does he yearn for the presidency? Does he feel like he will do whatever is necessary? Does he have that fire in the belly?
No, I think he really wants to be president. He did not have to do this. There was a time when people thought he wasn't going to do it. He launched early to make it very clear to everybody he wanted to do it. He's working very hard. Much of the campaign is going very, very well. We're raising a lot of money. He still is hanging in there in the polls. We've got this phenomenon of Trump and Carson that, you know, I watch you guys every morning try to explain to the country on Morning Joe, and we're trying to explain it, but we don't know it. What's really happened, in my view, was Trump got into the race and froze the race. He shot to the top for reasons we don't fully understand. We're still trying to explain it. But he froze the race for 3 or 4 months. I think the race is now unfreezing a little bit. We've seen it with Carson moving up. We've seen it with Rubio bouncing a little bit. And I think over the next few months it's going to melt even more, and other candidates are going to have a chance. But there's no question something happened in this race over the summer with Donald Trump that none of us anticipated, and we still can't quite explain.
Big talk this week about whether Jeb Bush and his allies can go negative on Marco Rubio, and some Bush donors even don't want that to happen. You know, no Bush has won the White House without doing negative campaigns against their rivals in the nomination fight. Is there some reason that Jeb Bush should be reluctant, not on personal attacks, but is there some reason why Jeb Bush and his allies should be reluctant to say, here's what's wrong with Marco Rubio and Jeb's better?
I think it's tougher to take on Marco Rubio, whether you're Jeb Bush or anybody else, because, first of all, you guys don't, the polling shows that even though the Republican Party voters have preferences, they're not firm preferences. So they're thinking about 3 or 4 candidates, even if they say they are for one candidate or the other. Right. That means they don't necessarily want any of the candidates to be too badly roughed up, because that may be somebody they end up supporting. And in the case of Marco Rubio, you got a party that's had problems with Hispanics and problems with young voters, and he's a young Hispanic, articulate leader. A lot of people in the party, including people that are not supporting him for president, don't want to see him damaged too badly. The party doesn't need to start alienating.
Jeb Bush doesn't have, and his allies, his super PAC, don't have the option?
I think they got to be very careful about it, and whether it's Bush or anybody else, I think you got to be very careful how you take on Marco Rubio. He's an attractive person to much of the party, even to people that aren't backing him.
Well, so that's fine. You know, you got to be careful about it, and there's no doubt. I mean, it seems to me, if I'm running Marco Rubio's campaign, that element of Teflon that you're describing is a pretty incredible asset that he has. So if you got to be careful about it, how do you do it? Because you can't just let him skate. If you let him skate, he's going to go on and win the nomination.
Well, I know that. I think you can take him on at some point, but it's got to be very strictly on the issues, very strictly and raise the question of, has his conduct on issues proven that he is ready to be president?
Is it issues or is it leadership? Is there issues you think that contrast is winning for Jeb Bush? Or is it just Jeb Bush says, I'm more experienced, I've tested, he's not?
I don't think that cuts enough. I think you have
What's
to...
the issue? What's an issue where Jeb Bush can say, here's Marco Rubio's position, here's mine, vote for me, I'm better?
Well, I'm not going to start defining it for Bush yet, but I think other candidates are going to do that as well as Governor Bush. But I think you've got to stick to the issues with him, because otherwise you're going to end up in a personal fight, and that's not what anybody wants.
But let me ask you this question directly, right? Marco Rubio's got this one position on abortion where he says he's against abortion, and even in cases of rape, incest, life of the mother. A lot of people think that's a a very difficult position to hold in a general election. Yeah. Is it okay for Republicans to prosecute that issue? Is that an argument that you can feel comfortable making, even though it might damage him in the general election?
I think you're right that position is damaging in the general election. I think to take on a candidate in a Republican primary for being too pro-life is a strategy that is not likely to work.
Who's the nominee going to be?
I think Bush is still going to be the nominee. I would be dishonest if I said I'm shocked by the way that this campaign has developed. I thought Bush would be running away with it by now. I'm surprised. But I still think he is clearly the best qualified candidate. I like the way he performed in the debate the other night. I think he contrasts best with these
everybody in the party says, well, I'll support whoever the nominee is. You know, they're all better than Hillary Clinton. If Donald Trump is the nominee, will people like you say, you know what, that's a bridge too far. We're going to have to find another solution?
I think that we saw in the debate the other night some real fissures in the Republican Party unfolding. Somebody like Donald Trump, who says that he wants to deport 11 million people, wants to basically start a trade war with Mexico and wants to seize the oil fields in the Middle East, causes me a lot of heartburn.